UFC Fight Night, Fiziev versus Gamrot is this weekend, and I'm bringing you guys another predictions and breakdown video. Let's go. Kicking us off at women's bantamweight, we have Tamirez Vidal versus Montserrat Rendon. Um, this one's pretty easy for me. I'm going with Tamirez Vidal. I think she's just better. I think she's fought a better level of competition, even though that level of competition isn't very high. She's getting finishes though over people in the UFC. Granted, the lady she beat in the UFC probably shouldn't have been in the UFC. Ramona Pascal, I believe, is the name off the top of my head. But Montserrat Rendon, she's just not very good. She's pretty old, honestly. She's 34, and she's taken a 6-5 chick to a split decision on the regional scene. I just I don't see it for Montserrat Rendon. I'm going with Tamirez Vidal, probably by like TKO, honestly. She's a lot younger. She has a lot more power in her hands. She's very aggressive. I think she gets it done. Moving up to women's strawweight, we have Mizuki versus Hannah Goldie. This is another one where I'm just like, I feel like this is kind of a easy prediction. I'm fading Hannah Goldie. If you're losing to Molly McCann in the first round, I just logistically can't do enough mental gymnastics to ever pick you to win a fight ever again. So I'll go with Mizuki. Mizuki hasn't fought in a while though. She has had kind of a big layoff, but she's relatively young, so I think maybe there's some gains made to her game in those 3 years, as opposed to just somebody taking 3 years off, like a Alex Reyes. Like last week, he had a 6 year layoff, but that was due to like spinal infections and a bunch of injuries. I think maybe she maybe had a couple of injuries, but I feel like she's improved over these 3 years as opposed to stagnated and done nothing. Hannah Goldie sucks. That's my that's my reasoning. Next, moving up to moving up to heavyweight, Muhammad Usman versus Jake Collier. Now, there's a couple of fights on this card where I'm kind of 50-50. This is one of them. I like if you looked me in the eyes and said I'm taking Jake Collier, I wouldn't I wouldn't hate it. I'm going with Muhammad Usman, but I don't hate Jake Collier as a dog. Um, I'm going with Muhammad because he had a boring fight with Junior Tafa, but I think Junior Tafa is actually a really good striker. I think he's definitely like if Junior Tafa and Jake Collier fought, Junior Tafa would finish him. I think pretty clearly. Uh, so I like that Muhammad Usman fought, in my opinion, a better striker than Jake Collier, a more athletic guy. Jake Collier used to fight at middleweight. Like he doesn't belong at heavyweight, in my opinion. He's a lot smaller. I guarantee you, he's going to be a lot weaker than Muhammad Usman. And Jake Collier normally has about 5 minutes of cardio before it's chalked for him. And I think he's going to have a hard time if Muhammad Usman pushes a heavy wrestling pace on him, which I suspect he's going to do. Um, and Muhammad Usman's capable enough on the feet to where I don't think he's going to get completely destroyed by Jake Collier. He's got big power and he's decently responsible with his hands defensively. I think he can win this fight by honestly he might. Does Muhammad Usman have any submission wins? He has two. He has two submission wins. Call me crazy, but I think Muhammad Usman might get a sub here. Because I know Jake Collier always melts in fights as they go later. I feel like Muhammad Usman, I can just see him having Jake Collier flattened out and Jake Collier pretty much just giving up and Muhammad just going for a rear naked choke to just get the fight over with. I could see it. I really can. Um, yeah, I think I might go with Muhammad Usman by submission, as weird as that sounds. Fuck it. Let's fuck around, I guess. Moving up to middleweight, Jacob Malkoon, Cody Brundage. Now, I'm picking Jacob Malkoon because I think he's actually decent. Like I think he should have beaten Brendan Allen. I think he's a decent fighter, Jacob Malkoon. There's only one thing about him that concerns me, and that's his chin. I don't think his chin's very good. He seems to get wobbled quite a bit, and it does sketch me out a lot, but I think he's really good. But I also see a world where Cody Brundage does land something big on his chin, and I don't think Jacob Malkoun will like that very much. Uh, so honestly, they have Malkoun at minus 500. I'm picking him to win because he should win. I think he's going to win by decision. Clear that up. But I don't hate the idea of sprinkling like Cody Brundage TKO or something. I don't hate it. But yeah, official prediction, Jacob Malkoun, probably a decision. He honestly could get a submission or a TKO though, but Jacob Malkoun's kind of a decision fighter, let's be real. Jumping up to welterweight, this is one of the fights that was kind of racking my brain over. Tim Means, Andre Fialho. Yeah, this one's kind of tough, and it's just because Fialho's looked like such dog shit lately. He's been TKO'd 3 times in a row. Granted, by guys that are good, that TKO a lot of people, like Salikov, Joaquin Buckley. Who else? Who else TKO'd him? I can't remember off the top of my head. Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews is who it was. But those are all decent guys, man. And part of me really wanted to pick Tim Means, but I don't think in good faith I can pick Tim Means at 35 years old, man. Or 35. 39. I can't read. My bad. 39 years old. I can't get there. You know what I mean? I'm going with Andre Fialho. I don't think Tim Means is a bad underdog at all. So if you pick Tim Means, you might be sharp, honestly. I'm picking Andre Fialho because he's only 29. He's got skills, but he just needs to be more defensively responsible. He's had a relatively long layoff, right? No, not really. May. Actually, has had a pretty short layoff, actually. I completely forgot how recently that Joaquin Buckley fight was. But he's a young guy. I'm trusting him to be like, okay, I need to win this fight. He's young. He can make gains to his game. I'm going to trust in him to do that. Then I'm going to, more than I'm going to trust a 39-year-old Tim Means to go out there and chin somebody in 2023. But it could happen. But I'm going with Andre Fialho. I think I'm going with Andre Fialho by TKO. Yeah. Going up to bantamweight, Dan Argueta versus Miles Johns. I'm going with Dan Argueta, man. He beat Ronnie Lawrence. That's all I gotta say, really. There was some weird debauchery, some hooliganism going on with that submission win. I think it was Keith Peterson that did that. Shout out Keith Peterson for ruining that fight. But Dan Argueta definitely submitted Ronnie Lawrence. And I think Dan Argueta's pretty good, man. In his debut, he gets Damon Jackson, a guy who's a really tricky finisher, a guy who's been around for a very long time, been in there with good fighters. In his debut, he survives the absolute worst positions with Damon Jackson, where he's at his absolute best for a full 15 minutes without even really any look of concern or worry on his face the entire time. He lost that fight, but he displayed an innate ability to not get finished by a guy who's kind of a finisher. So it kind of impressed me. And then he goes out there, has a good performance against Ronnie Lawrence. Before that, he beats a 7-1 guy, Nick Aguirre. I think Dan Argueta is actually pretty good. Miles Johns is good. He's got good power, but he throws very wildly. He's not very clean with his striking, and he kind of gasses a little bit. And I think Dan Argueta can take advantage of that. I do. I think Dan Argueta grinds out Miles Johns to a decision. I think he grinds him out to like a 29-28 decision. Maybe Miles Johns starts out really strong, gets the first round, but then Dan Argueta comes alive in the second and third, hits him with the reverse sweep, gets the decision win. Jumping up to the main card at featherweight, fellas, this is the fight we were looking at since it was announced. This is the one, guys. Charles Jourdain versus Ricardo Ramos. Is this not god tier matchmaking? Holy shit, this fight is awesome. Ricardo Ramos, he's an absolute freak in there. He is one of the most wild strikers you can watch. He's coming off of an absolutely electric spinning back elbow over Danny Chavez. Now, Danny Chavez is okay. Now Ricardo Ramos is kind of a 50-50 fighter as of late. He has a win over Bill Algeo, though. So, that's kind of impressive. He lost to Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy's a really good fighter. Whatever. He lost to Zubaira Tukagov. Good fighter. He's just kind of 50-50. However, there's some things on his record that kind of give me some pause going into a fight against Charles Jourdain. Man, we're taking Jourdain Noose into a decision. I don't like that. Ricardo Ramos is a guy who's a very wild striker. A lot of the time, he throws a lot of spinning attacks. He throws a lot of looping shots. And the problem with that when you're fighting Charles Jourdain is Charles Jourdain's a guy like that. He will meet you in the middle with that wild style, but the way he strikes is much cleaner. He throws a lot more straight punches, and he's a lot more defensively responsible. I don't think Ricardo Ramos is going to be inclined to grapple with Charles Jourdain unless he gets hurt. And if he does try and grapple with Charles Jourdain, I don't think it's going to work out for him because Charles Jourdain's a black belt. He's very responsible defensively a lot of the time with his jiu-jitsu defense, and he's got decent enough takedown defense. I think this is going to be largely a stand-up fight, and I think I favor Charles Jourdain a little bit more. I think he's cleaner. I just think his punches are going to get there easier and faster, and I think defensively he is a little bit superior to Ricardo Ramos, but it is going to be a banger, I'm sure of it. But I am going with Charles Jourdain. I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain by TKO, I think. I think he's going to get him out of there maybe like late second round. Moving up to welterweight, Bryan Battle, AJ Fletcher. This is another good fight. This fight night card is really good. I'm going with Bryan Battle, kind of for the similar reasons I picked Charles Jourdain. AJ Fletcher is kind of like a Ricardo Ramos to me. Not quite as insane and crazy, but if AJ Fletcher starts to kind of feel like he can't get off or he's like falling behind in a fight, he starts to like spurt out and kind of get a little crazy. We saw that with Gabe Green and Bryan Battle's last fight. You don't want to kind of do that with Bryan Battle because he will bite down on his mouthpiece and he will throw a shot in the pocket, and he has the power to put a lot of guys at welterweight out. Another thing that I think is important for this is that Bryan Battle has a 10-inch reach advantage over AJ Fletcher. So if they get into a heated exchange where they're both throwing wild shots, Bryan Battle is going to be on the outside of a lot of AJ Fletcher's shots, especially if he's throwing hooks, because Bryan Battle is not going to be in range of those. AJ Fletcher is going to have to throw straight shots if he wants to land on Bryan Battle. I just don't think he's going to do that, and I don't think he's going to be able to land with very much efficiency on Bryan Battle just because he's so much bigger and longer. I think Bryan Battle's got better power. I think his striking's better. I think his grappling defense is fine. AJ Fletcher could be more inclined to shoot a takedown to try and get him to the ground, but I trust in Bryan Battle defensively. The only guy who's really been able to manhandle Bryan Battle on the ground was Renat Fekretinov, and that guy's a fucking freak. So I can't look too deeply into that. I'm trusting Bryan Battle. I think Bryan Battle is going to get a TKO win over AJ Fletcher. Going up to women's strawweight, Marina Rodriguez, Michelle Waterson Gomez. I'm not going to talk too long about this one. I'm going with Marina Rodriguez. She's already beat Michelle Waterson like 2 fights ago. Michelle Waterson's on a 3-fight loss streak. She's 37 and giving up 3 inches of reach. I just don't think I don't think she's going to beat a chick who beat her like 2 or 3 fights ago. And since then, Michelle Waterson has not won a fight. I don't think anything has changed. I think Marina Rodriguez is going to beat Michelle Watterson probably by decision. Michelle Watterson's pretty tough, but I think Marina Rodriguez is just gonna school her again. Uh, Next up, Bryce Mitchell versus Dan Ige. This is a banger. I like this fight. Um, I'm surprised they have Bryce Mitchell as a 2-1 favorite. Honestly, I'm going with Bryce Mitchell, but I thought the line would be a little bit closer for Dan Ige just because he does pose a pretty significant threat to Bryce on the feet. Uh, but Bryce Mitchell's a much bigger guy, at least height wise. He's a little bit more rangy with his striking. He's not super aggressive, so I don't think it's gonna play too much into Dan Ige's style where he likes to hit guys coming in on him. Uh, Bryce Mitchell's more inclined to throw like body kicks from the outside as opposed to just running like a Damon Jackson or somebody. Uh, I think the reason we have Bryce Mitchell as a 2-1 favorite is because of his distinct grappling advantage over Dan Ige. Now, Dan Ige has a striking advantage over Bryce Mitchell, but it's not by a gigantic margin. In my opinion, the grappling advantage for Bryce Mitchell is kind of like a mountain compared to Dan Ige. Uh, Bryce Mitchell has very lethal jiu-jitsu. He's able to get fights to the ground pretty easily. He took down Ilia Topuria. He beat the shit out of Edson Barboza, who I think is a much more dangerous striker than Dan Ige is. Um, and Dan Ige was out grappled pretty easily by like the Korean Zombie. Not that the Korean Zombie's bad or has bad grappling, but like you never really see the Korean Zombie just be like, all right, I'm this guy can't get up. I'm just gonna hold him down. I'm just gonna hold him down and beat him up on the ground. You don't see that very often. Now I believe Dan Ige has definitely made grappling gains since that fight and since some of his earlier fights in the UFC. And he's gonna know that Bryce Mitchell's gonna want to grapple. I just don't know. I don't know if he can make enough progress in his grappling game to be able to match Bryce Mitchell in this fight. I'm gonna go with Bryce Mitchell. I think does he finish Dan Ige? I don't think he does. But he could. You know what? I'm gonna Bryce Mitchell's the first guy to finish Dan Ige. I'm going with Bryce Mitchell by submission in like round 3. Let's go. Jumping up to the main event, Rafael Fiziev, Matus Gamrot. Another banger. They have Rafael Fiziev at minus 150. I'm picking him to win. Matus Gamrot's good. He's very good. But his striking, man, scares the shit out of me when when he's fighting because a lot of the time he's very open. Jalen Turner was catching him with regularity in their fight, and I worry that if Jalen Turner's catching you with regularity and you're getting like stumbled, dropped, hurt by Jalen Turner, what is going to happen if Rafael Fiziev lands on you? I think that's bad news bears. Now, Matus Gamrot does have a path to victory here, and that's to chain wrestle, and he does that very well. He's a great grappler, one of the best in lightweight. But he's going to need to do it for 5 rounds, which I'm sure he can do. But the first 3 rounds, I think, against Fiziev are going to be an absolute danger zone most of the time because he needs to wear on Fiziev. He can't entertain the kickboxing, I don't think, for very long when Fiziev is fresh. I think it's a terrible mistake, and I think he's going to get hurt on the feet. Then he's going to be forced to panic wrestle once he is hurt. I think that's bad. But I can see Fiziev starting to slow down in rounds 4 and 5, kind of like he did against RDA, even though he TKO'd RDA in the 5th round. He was starting to slow down a little bit, but that's because RDA was grinding on him, shooting, 20 takedowns on him. Yeah, you'll start to slow. But Matus Gamrot can do that same thing, except I think he's a better grappler than RDA. So that in my opinion, is Matus Gamrot's path to victory is to just grind him out in those championship rounds and look for a finish over a tired Fiziev. But I feel like Fiziev's striking is too good, and his takedown defense early is too good because he's a short guy. He's a big, strong guy, and he's got good balance, and he's really good at digging underhooks to defend takedowns. I feel like the first 3 rounds or so, Mateusz Gamrot's going to be a lot of trouble, and I think Rafael Fiziev can find a finish in those first 3 rounds. And in hindsight, his fight with Justin Gaethje, which was razor close, which you could have given to Rafael Fiziev, because round 1 was Fiziev all day, round 2 was razor thin, like it could have gone to either guy. That loss and that fight has aged very well, considering Justin Gaethje just blew up Dustin Poirier 2 rounds. So yeah, man, I'm going with Rafael Fiziev. I'm gonna go by like a round 2 TKO. I think he's gonna find Mateusz Gamrot in a striking exchange where Mateusz leaves his head wide open. His boxing defense, man, just sketches me out. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. Maybe let me know your picks in the comments below. I'll see you guys.